Hi, my name is Christy, and this podcast is my pursuit to glean practical wisdom on femininity, homemaking, finances, and relationships from the God-fearing women in my life. Hope you enjoy this journey with me as we learn to smile at the future. Now let's dive right in. Welcome back, ladies, to another episode. But before you listen, if you have gained some lasting benefit from the ladies I'm interviewing, would you tell the other listeners about it in a review on Apple Podcasts? Many people who are browsing podcasts won't stop and listen unless something draws their attention, and it's not going to be my clip art. It's going to be you sharing your experience as a listener that is going to make people pause and listen. And please remember, you can share your ideas for topics and send comments by emailing smilingatthefuturepodcast@gmail.com. I received my very first email this week from Vina in Canada, and it brightened my week so much to get that encouragement and feedback. So thank you, Vina, for taking the time to send that email. Today, I'm interviewing a gracious and godly woman from my church named Delores Michaelson. And Delores is going to share her heart on the topic of friendships. We're going to cover questions such as, how do you prioritize friendships if you're in a large church or social setting? How you can be an encouraging friend to someone who is in an extended trial? And how do you identify if you are a giver or a taker in your friendships? So lots of great questions. Delores has so much wisdom and life experience, and I am very thankful to share our conversation today. So here is Delores Michaelson. Well, Delores, I could not think of a better or friendlier lady to speak on the topic of friendship. And I can say you were nominated by your good friend, Logan Carr, who I interviewed on a previous episode. And she said Delores would be the perfect person to speak about friendship. So that's why I chose you. But I do remember the first time I met you at Grace Community Church, you just made me feel like I was the only person in the room. You were just so engaged and made me feel so special and just asked such good questions. And that just really stuck in my mind. And I just really appreciated how you reached out to me when I first started coming to Grace Community Church. And you are actually one of the founding members of Grace.
Right.
And how long have you been a member at Grace Church?
65 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I won't tell you to tell our listeners how old you are, but can you tell our listeners how long you've been married?
I've been married 70 years, and I'm very proud to be 89 and a half years old because I never thought I would make it, and I made it. The Lord has been so kind.
Well, you are those many years young, because anybody who knows you just knows you have such a spark and zest for life, both you and your husband, Burton Michaelson. Well, I am going to go through our list of questions. We have quite a few of them, ranging all over the place, but all with the underlying theme of friendship. And it's an important topic, especially for single women, because a lot of our relationships are just made up of friendships and between guys and girls. So it is something near and dear to a lot of our hearts. And I know, just speaking for myself, it's something I want to do well, and I want to gain wisdom on and learn from you. So what character qualities would you say that someone should cultivate in order to be a good friend?
Well, I think there's so many ramifications of this, so many different views of it. It's almost like a diamond when you see the different facets. But probably to care more about your friend than you care about yourself. I would have to say that's primary, because selfish people that really only think about themselves can't be good friends because they're only thinking about them, and they should be thinking about their friends. That is really primary, I think, to take your eyes off yourself and put your eyes on the other people around you.
So true. I thought too on this question, and just trustworthiness. If you are a trustworthy person that your friends feel they can confide and bring their struggles and trials to you, and they know that you're not going to spread their news or information, that you'll just take it to the Lord in prayer. And I think that is such a good quality. There's a Proverbs 16:28. It says, "A dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends." And so you don't want to be gossiping or whispering your friends' confidential information to others.
But that is so true. That's almost a given. If you like to talk and you don't really care what you say, you will not have any real friends because people will learn not to trust you with their confidences. That is probably one of the worst things that can happen to somebody, that they're not trustworthy. So what you're saying is so vitally important, because when your friend confides in you, they're really trusting you not to say that to anybody else or say something that would even allude to it. That's the thing. Sometimes we fall in traps because we say, oh, well, I know she didn't really mean to say this, or something like that, where you're keeping yourself thinking that you're clean from spreading rumors, but you're actually spreading rumors. It's the very best thing to keep your mouth closed and say nothing to anybody, even your very best friend. Don't tell your very best friend, because your best friend has another best friend that they want to tell that to, and it will get back to your friend, and you will lose a friend. And that is true. That's so important, Christy.
Any other qualities that you would say make for a good friend?
Logan Carr is I haven't told her this, but she's my very best friend. She has other friends that are her very best friend, but she is my very best friend. And there's a good reason for that, because I can call her up and say, you have to pray for me right now because of this situation or that situation. And she will stop everything and pray with me right now on the phone or at church or wherever we happen to be. We don't just say, well, I'll pray for you. We go, hey, let's pray right now. I will tell you, people will respond to you like this. Oh, I would love to do that. And when you pray with the person that minute, it's so much easier to remember to keep praying for them. It does something to our relationship between the two of us when you pray together, because you let all the defenses down and you open your heart to God in front of this other person, and they open their heart to God in front of you, and it binds you in this wonderful love. And I can talk to Logan Carr about anything I find in the Bible. We can talk about things. We can find other things to substantiate what we're talking about. And not so many of my friends, but the ones that want to talk about their new car or a new dress or things that will burn, I'm not interested. I'm only interested. I love just talking about the Lord. It's so wonderful. So I would say, I pick my friends according to how much I can talk to the Lord about with them.
That's encouraging. There's that Proverbs 13:20, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. And then the other half of the verse, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Picking friends that love talking about God's word, and that you can grow in your knowledge of the Lord through their friendship. Now, we're at Grace Community Church, and it's a very large church. I don't know how many members are there right now. Do you know, Dolores?
Oh, I think there were upwards to 10,000. Maybe there's 7 or 8,000 now. I'm not sure.
Okay. But there's a lot of people, and it's impossible to know everyone and to be good friends with everyone. So for those of us who are in a large social context, how do you choose friends you will spend more time with, and how do you evaluate how to prioritize certain people? Have you mastered that by any chance?
As I said, Logan is my very best friend. We laugh because she says, well, I have a rowboat, and in there I have 3 families, and I'm so happy I'm included. But she said, but you have a cruise ship, and I do have a cruise ship. I really love people. I see so much merit in so many of them. And when you said that I made you feel good, that was because I saw so much merit in you, Christy, when I first met you. I wanted to be your friend. But here's the thing. You only have so much time. And I have a big family, really big family. I have 18 great grandchildren. I have to give a lot of time to my family. I do truly see so much merit in so many people. And so what I've done during COVID is call women that I know are having problems. And I'm just asking them if we can just pray together right then. And it's just been such a blessing. It's been such a blessing because we see together God answering our prayers. We've had some hard things, like one of our friends just passed away, 57 years old, had a heart attack, and he was gone that day. And so his little widow and his family, we're grieving with them. We're rejoicing with other families that are finding out the cancer is gone and there is no more cancer and the chemotherapy is over and they are still doing well. I just can't even answer that question because I see merit in everybody. Of course, some are going to resound a little bit more than others will. That's just the way it is. I think that, when the Bible tells you that to love other people more than you love yourself, wow, that's what we need to do. We need to really concentrate on loving other people and thinking of them more than we think about ourselves. And we think about ourselves a lot. We do. We're just dirty, rotten sinners saved by grace, So, but you can exercise that just like you exercise your body. You can exercise thinking of other people first before you think of yourself. And let your word be your bond. Don't go back on it. Don't say it if you don't think you can do it. Well, I had to learn that one the hard way, but that's a good one.
And I love how you said you reach out to the people that you know are going through a trial or are struggling. I think it can be difficult to, especially if someone's in a trial that's extended and it's not over in a matter of months, but what if it's something that's years and years, and that person can sometimes find themselves alone because it's not fun to walk with someone through a trial. But can you talk a little bit about that? How can you persevere and endure alongside a friend who is going through an extended trial?
Yes, definitely. I think the thing that you have to remember is that you are a support system. A support system doesn't talk all the time, but supports. So when you don't even know what to say, when somebody has just lost a child or lost a mate, there is nothing you can say, nothing you can say that's good. Okay? It's best you say nothing. Just come alongside and you say, here I am. I'm just alongside to hold you up. And that's pretty much all you can do. And every once in a while, after the crucial time in the beginning is over and they are starting to come into the realization that that loved one is gone, then you can sit with them, you can pray with them. You know, it brings me to tears just to think how much God loves us. And if you're the friend that comes alongside somebody that's just lost somebody very, very meaningful in their life, just hold their hands, put your arm around them. It's better than saying a lot of things that would maybe even hurt them. And just be there. And don't walk away. And don't get tired. Just stay there. Be there. Call them. And you don't have to say a lot. They'll say something to you. And that's okay. But you have to just understand where they're coming from. And they're not going to get well and over it in a matter of days. We're talking years and years to really, and you never get over some of these things. A child, losing a child, no. I'll just tell you right now, if you do not know anybody that's lost a child, be very careful that say very little and just love them in every way. Love them in every way you possibly can without saying a lot. There's nothing you can say, but you can be there and you can be the solace that they need, and you can be the prayer voice talking to the Lord that they need, because they're like on a raft without a paddle. I mean, it's such a hard thing, very hard thing. And people want to make light of it because that makes them feel better. I remember being with my friend. We had boys identical, same age, I should say. And her little boy ran out in the street. He was crossing the street. He was 4 years old, crossing the street. Heavens knows why he was even there. Lost his shoe and came back to get his shoe without realizing that the car coming down the street, going 35, 40 miles an hour, he wasn't speeding, hit that little boy, killed him. And I was with the mom in the kitchen, and she looked out the window and she went, oh no, here comes a neighbor. I don't know what to say to her. I said, you don't know what to say to her? Believe me, she doesn't know what to say to you. I said, when you open the door, why don't you just hug her? And she'll be so appreciative if you'll do that, because then she can hug you back and she doesn't have to ask anything. Just have your love expressed that way. And she did that. It was so much better. But that taught me a lot. And I realized, not that you're going to maybe ever be with somebody that loses a child or a mate. You may not ever have that. Say little and show lots of love. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Dolores. It made me think of that verse in Ecclesiastes, 2 are better than 1. And then it says, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. And just how you were sharing about when someone's in a deep grieving state or in a long trial where they're despairing and hopeless, and maybe they can't even formulate prayer anymore, you can pray. And I know people have done that for me in different seasons of life, and how sweet it was when I couldn't think of what to say or how to pray. Someone else found the words and interceded, and just such a special gift. Are there biblical examples of friendships, or even the example of Jesus as a friend, that you want to point out to our listener?
Well, I always loved the friendship between David and Jonathan. I thought that was so pure. That was so wonderful. They were there for each other, and that was in hard circumstances. And that's really basically, there's just been so many. Trying to read through the Bible this year, it's been very interesting because I did a lot of the Old Testament. And you know what I should have done is Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, and Proverbs. That's how they ask you to do it. So, oh no, I was too smart. So I just did the Old Testament until it got so bloody and so gorish. I was terrible. I literally had to pull myself out of the doldrums and go to the New Testament and Psalms and Proverbs. It's really tough, but it's okay now. I've got things worked out. When the first church started up, everybody, well, I mean, not everybody, but they sold places, they sold things so they could bring the money in and put it at the apostles' feet. And there was so much joy, so much happiness, and so many rich friendships in that. And we still have friendships that we started 65 years ago that are going strong today. It's amazing. Yeah, it is amazing.
That's neat. And I learned something recently about David and Jonathan, their friendship in the Old Testament, that I think they think Jonathan was significantly older than David. I think he was at least 20 or 30 years older, which I think is interesting because I thought they were peers. But I think I don't know how people have come to that conclusion, but I thought that was neat. And it kind of segues me into my next question of the importance of building friendships with people of all ages and stages of life. You do that so well. What do you see are the benefits of seeking out those friendships and not just staying in your peer group?
Oh boy, that's a good question. And I have got a great answer. When I was young, I was probably in my early 20s. We started the church when I was 24. I had, I think, I remember five older ladies. And they just were so great. I remember every single thing about every one of them. And I used to take them all out to lunch. We'd go out to lunch together, and I would just ask them questions about everything, because you know what I realized early on? They have experienced life. I haven't experienced life. I mean, I barely was in my 20s, and so, I'm kind of like a beginner at life. But they were definitely older, and I mean, they probably were at that time 60, in their middle 60s, and I thought that was really old. And but wow, did we have times together? And I mean, I took this seriously. Like, I didn't take them out once. It was my group, and I would take them out a lot. And then when we would work in the church, I'd work alongside of them. I'd go over to their house and help them with different things that they had to do, because I loved being with these older women. It was just so wonderful, and I learned so much from them. I really learned to love the Lord with all my heart and soul, because they had told me In all their years, they never saw God fail. They never saw God do short. There's always more than they could even handle. I just loved it. Well, then the people my own age, I loved them too, because we were learning together. We didn't know hardly anything, and we were learning the Bible together. And then when I was like 50, my friend said to me one time, a contemporary of mine, I said, I think I'm going to start to memorize the Bible. And she said, oh, you're way too old for memorizing the Bible. And I went home and I thought, I'm only 50. I don't think that's too old to memorize the Bible. So I think I will set about memorizing James 1. Now that's a whole chapter, and I had not memorized a whole chapter before. Well, I have to tell you, she was the first person I said my chapter to. And because she said, that's amazing. I said, I know, but I'm going to go on to the next one. And I started to realize this wonderful, wonderful thing about memorization. But maybe Christy will ask me a question about memorization later, and I will continue with this question. Now, not only do I like contemporaries, not only do I like older people, but I love all my great-grandchildren who are small, and 18 of them. I mean, they do go up to 18, 19 years old, okay? But I want to be involved with every single one of them. I really do. I want to tell those children how much I love God and what God means to me. We had a family reunion for our 70th wedding anniversary. And I'm up in Idaho, and I'm sitting, and all the 40 people came to celebrate, the 40 immediate family that we have. And my little great-grandson, Micah, sat next to me, and he goes, More, I have to tell you that I don't love God, and I don't know how to. And I said, Micah, you're only 7.5, and you really haven't seen God working in your life. All you do is know that your mother and dad believe in God. And you hear the name God, but you can't see him, and you can't touch him, and you can't feel him. You don't know where he is. So I'm going to start writing you a letter about what God means in my life. And I'm now composing my 4th letter to him. It's been so wonderful because my little grandson was being very honest. I think a lot of little children feel like they better love God because their parents love God and the whole family loves God. And so they probably want to love God. But maybe some of them really don't understand what it means to love God. And so that's what I'm trying to explain to my little 7.5-year-old. And we're having quite a time. The first question he asked was, where did sin come from? So that's a very difficult question. I mean, that's the first question this kid asks, where did sin come from? So I have to study. I have to ask learned people if I am on the right track. My scripture's right. I am not talking down to him when I write the letter. I'm explaining about things that are, and I think that he is able to understand them, apparently because from one of the things that he says afterwards. But I got to thinking about my 19-year-old and 18-year-old are not declaring that they're Christians. So I'm going to do the same thing with them. I'm going to write to them. In fact, I'm going to be doing that next couple of days and ask them to put down all the questions they have about God. because I'm sure they have a lot of questions about God. And then I am going to try to answer those questions. It's not going to be just with the 7.5-year-old, but with the older ones. And I'm not even done then, because I've got 18 great-grandchildren. So every age group is important. Every age group teaches you something. It's such a good thing to have a variety.
Even if reaching out to someone in a different age group is maybe takes a little more effort, you have to figure out ways to connect and conversation, it's still worth the investment.
It doesn't make any difference if they're a little child, if they're an old person. All you have to do is ask them questions about themselves, because everybody likes to talk about themselves. And most of the time, people aren't really, especially for old people aren't really asking them any questions about themselves. It's kind of like, oh, you had a history? you had a life before this, being old and in a home? What I really wanted to do one time is just go to an old people's home and start talking to some of these people about their life. Wow. Wouldn't that be exciting?
Yes, and most of them could write a book. I mean, just the history that they've lived through and experienced firsthand. Aren't you just loving how straightforward and helpful Dolores is being in this conversation? I hope you will join us next week. Dolores talks about how to identify if you're more of a taker than a giver in your friendships, and how you can view and treat the Christian single men in your life in a way that is edifying and helpful. So please share the podcast with a friend if you know it would be an encouragement to them. And I'll look forward to having you back next week. So long.